Hospitality Meets is brought to you by RotaCloud, the staff scheduling app for hospitality teams. RotaCloud lets you create and share rotas, record attendance, and manage your team's annual leave, all in less time than it takes to make a brew. It can also make life easier for your staff, allowing them to check their rotas, request holiday, and even pick up extra shifts, all through the RotaCloud mobile app. Start your 30-day free trial today by visiting rotacloud.com/Phil and find out how much easier managing your team can be. Welcome to Hospitality Meets with me, Phil Street, where each week we take a light-hearted look into the stories and individuals that make up the wonderful world of hospitality. Today's guest is Daniel McLoughlin, owner and founder of RockSalt Cafes in Ireland. Coming up on today's show, Daniel makes Phil feel welcome.
Well, Phil, what's the crack? Are you having a cappuccino?
Phil describes Daniel's start in the industry. God, you didn't fall into it, you staggered kind of wildly into it. And Daniel highlights what being flung in the deep end looks like.
Didn't know how to iron a shirt, never mind run a hotel.
All that and so much more as we chat through Daniel's quite remarkable stories so far. His story shows what happens when you're bold and you don't mind a bit of learning. As always, if you're enjoying the show, please don't forget to give us a subscribe, a like and a share across your favourite social channels. Enjoy! And a huge Hospitality Meets welcome to Daniel McLoughlin.
Hi Phil, how are you doing? Good morning.
All right. How's things with you?
Yeah, all good. Had my gym session this morning and I stopped off at our bakery there and got a nice coffee and an almond croissant, so I'm ready to rock.
You're right on brand as well, right on your own brand.
Absolutely. If I don't support it, there'll be something wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. So just tell the world who you are and what it is that you do.
Yes, my name is Daniel McLoughlin. I am the owner, I suppose, creator of RockSalt Cafes here in Ireland. And yeah, I suppose we've grown from a small kind of village cafe into, we've got 6 strong outlets at the moment, and I'm continuing to push and strive for more. So yeah, let's see what happens.
I think that's just one of the, and to be fair, I was going to say it's one of the reasons I wanted to get you on the show, but you reached out to me and quite a long time ago, and we've been trying to make this happen for a bit of time, but finally we've gotten there. But I think one of the reasons why this was a really appealing story, in inverted commas, to me, is the fact that's not your background, but two, it's kind of, you're growing, and the world's order out there at the moment would tell people that it's a struggle to have a hospitality business, that that growth is very, very difficult because of cost pressures and all of these kind of things. But so to hear that you're kind of striving forward and pushing ahead with new sites is absolutely music to my ears.
Yeah, no, it's been a great success, to be fair. We're into our 6th year in business now. I spent most of my career over in the UK and in hotels, which I'm sure we'll come on to shortly. But yeah, look, the main thing for me was always to keep the product right, keep the quality, keep the consistency, get the right people with us, on the same journey. And as long as I can keep the product right and the consistency levels across the business right, we'll keep pushing. And I'm 34 now. I still have a lot more to achieve, and I still want to do a lot more. So every day is learning for me, and the more we push on, the more we kick on, the more we grow in business. I'm learning a hell of a lot more, and ultimately that's the goal, is to keep learning, keep pushing. And I've had a fantastic journey so far through my career, but it's fantastic to be able to see people come along with me now as well. And the longer I can keep growing and pushing, they can keep growing as well. So it kind of helps everybody,
Yeah, and I think that really comes across in what I've seen of you on social and the stuff that you post. You're I suppose it's the age-old principle that you can't do this alone, right? You need to bring everybody along on the ride with you.
Yeah, 100%. And look, I've certainly learned that the hard way. I'm only really kind of, I say stop stepping out of the operations. I was on the coffee machine making coffees earlier this morning when I jumped in, but it's one of those things. Like, my role keeps evolving, but I'm not a guy who sits in the office, and I'm still out and about every day and touching all the sites and checking in on the teams. And anytime I see a queue of 2 or 3 people waiting for a coffee or waiting for a table, I'm straight in and I'm mucking around the place. So I love that. I love the everyday changing of the role as well,
Yeah.
and the flexibility that brings too.
Yeah. Absolutely. Right. Well, we'll absolutely get into rock salt as we go through the chat. I want to learn a little bit more about where you are and what you stand for and all that stuff. But before we get to that, let's go all the way back. And because, as I mentioned at the top of the show, it's actually cafes are not your prominent hospitality background. So just tell us, how the hell did you get into hospitality in the first place?
I fell into hospitality and dragged myself through it.
Not that
Yeah,
bad, is it?
I always had an entrepreneurial spirit, I suppose. Even as a kid, geez, I used to go around cutting people's grasses at the age of 8, 9, 10 for a couple of quid here and there. And I remember I used to have a go-kart, and this is back when you used to have videos before even DVDs came out. So I used to have a little trailer in the back of my go-kart, and I used to go around, and I used to rent out my videos to the kids on the streets every night, and I'd cycle back around the next day and pick them up. So I was always messing around. That's, I suppose, that never left me. My mum had a wee clothes shop in Dublin when she was maybe 21, 22, and she probably always instilled that kind of drive to. There was never a limit in my childhood growing up, if that makes sense. I could do whatever I wanted to do. I could go to America, I could go to Japan, I could make a successful business here or there. And I suppose probably at a young age she probably always instilled that in me, if that makes sense. My dad, on the other hand, would have been very cautious,
Yeah.
and would have been working with the same crowd for 20, 30 years, if that makes sense. But I was always very outgoing, loved to just be out and about. School was never really my forte, didn't really enjoy it. Loved sports, always into sports. And yeah, kind of I just did enough barely to get through school. I was clever enough that I knew I needed school, but I was never clever enough to actually knuckle down and do what I needed to do. I suppose you just scrape through it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I can 100% relate to that.
Yeah. And then I ended up, I suppose, funny story. I ended up in Shannon College Hotel Management. I'm from a place up north of Ireland called Dundalk, just north of Dublin. And yeah, as soon as I hit 17, I just wanted to get out of here. Didn't look back, and I got accepted to a college, Shannon College Hotel Management. Didn't know anything about it. Never worked in hospitality. I was working on a building site at the time. I did a few part-time bar gigs around the town, and worked in a few hotel bars and things like that. But nothing that even was near what hospitality is now, if that makes sense. Worked in petrol stations, few other bits and pieces. Always doing something. And yeah, my career guidance teacher at the time, I always wanted to do something in sports. PE teacher or sports management is what I was kind of gauging for. And I didn't get enough points to get my first or second choice to go to university for that. And my third choice came in, and it was Shannon College Hotel Management. I didn't even know it was on the bloody form that I'd filled in. Yeah, true story. My career guidance teacher had put it on and said, "Geez, he might be interested in this." So yeah, but unbeknownst to me, turns out my parents had actually gotten the brochure from the college beforehand and everything else, and hid it from me. Just they knew if I knew anything about it, I wouldn't go. And so the results came out, and my mum calls me. I was working on the building site and says, "Look, you got an offer to go down to Shannon College Hotel Management." And I said, "Geez, what the fuck is that?"
How?
And she said, "Well, come home, you'll have your tea and we'll talk you through it." And I went home and pulled out all the brochures, and geez, they must have had 5 or 6 different things. And one was all about uniform and cooking, and you had to buy a chef's uniform, had to buy books. I thought I was going to college and might do 2 hours a day and be up in Dublin with the lads or something like that. And this is like joining the army. So I decided to give it a go. Why not? I couldn't back out of it now, and I couldn't get. It was too late to get into any other courses. So yeah, we went down and absolutely hated it. Um,
Well, this is going really well.
for the first couple of weeks, I loved the social life of it. I was down, I was out the other side of Limerick, so at the time it was probably 4 or 5 hours away, and I loved. We were given these little holiday homes to that we stayed in as the kind of student accommodation, and all the students lived in there. So it was really like a family bond from the start, and that side aspect was absolutely brilliant. The college side of things, I didn't have a clue what I was getting into. There was people there who had worked in hotels their whole life, and 5-star hotels, and people who had owned them, and people's parents who'd ran hotels, and they all knew what the feck they were getting into. And I looked like a dope coming in. I was straight off a building site, didn't know how to iron a shirt, never mind run a hotel, with no experience in hospitality. So yeah, it was a rude awakening. I remember I walked into my first chef's class, and my chef whites weren't ironed, and the chef pulled me out of it and said, "What's going on here? You can't even iron your shirt." And I said, "I did, yeah, I ironed them." And he said, "Show me your locker," and fucking opened my locker, and my other chef whites were just in a ball thrown into the back of the locker.
Right.
And he fucking killed me, sent me home and said, "Go home and iron your shirt and come back to me." So I went home. I didn't know how to iron at the time, Phil, as embarrassing as that sounds. And I ended up ironing all the creases into the fucking chef's jacket, and went back into him, and he just pulled me out of the class and said, "Are you fucking taking the piss of me, son?" And I said, "No, I ironed it." So next thing, he pulls up an iron in bloody lecture hall in front of everybody and makes me
Oh,
iron my
wow.
chef whites and taught me how to iron. So ever since that day, I always had a pristine shirt. I tell you that.
Goodness. Yeah, but do you know what, right? I mean, as tough as that moment probably was, like these are the things that teach you discipline, right? The just the little lessons. And I mean, God, when you said that you fell into it, God, you didn't fall into it. You staggered kind of wildly into it, is what it feels like. That's
Yeah.
quite remarkable. Quite remarkable.
Yeah, 100%. And like the first year, I didn't like it. I remember coming back at Christmas, and we were off for 2 weeks, and I went down and had a pint with my dad, and I said, "Look, Dad, this isn't working out. I want to go back on the building site." And he turned around to me and said, "Look, give it the last 6 months. At least you'll have a year behind you, and you can go on and do something else then, you know." And I said, "Right, yeah, feck it, I'll go back. Sure, I've nothing to lose. There's no point in me leaving halfway through the year, if that made sense." And when I went back, I don't know whether it was a freedom or whether it was like a sense of, "Do you know what? I'm out of here in 6 months anyway, so let me just give it my best shot, or let's just see what happens." And I don't know, something turned, and I slowly started to enjoy it, and I slowly started to get into the business classes I enjoyed, and I loved the restaurant side of it. And I suppose it was one of those things. I actually gave it a chance. And then there was an option to go away in the second year, and I took that. I went to Luxembourg and worked in a hotel as a stagiaire for the full year, working my way up through the hotel. And I came back after that year a new man, and I knew exactly what I wanted to do.
Yeah, God Almighty. I mean, these are sliding doors moments and a half, aren't they? I
Yeah,
mean, like you go back and you think, nah, that's still not for me. Then very very different conversation. Well, we're probably not even having a conversation. That's probably the long and the short of it.
yeah, definitely not. I'd probably be on a building site somewhere. I probably would have had my own building company or something like that. But yeah, who would have known?
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, I suppose then at that point, what clicked? Can you pinpoint it? Was there something that you thought, actually, this is quite interesting now?
There was always something. Do you know what? It was the same in school. There was always like if somebody told me I couldn't do something, I wanted to do it. Do you know that kind of way? So
Right.
there was a few of the lecturers, a few of the chefs at the time had said, "Listen, this isn't for you. Do you know, you need to you're probably best to move on from here." Do you know, and I think that kind of resonated on me, and I said, "No, do you know what? Like, okay, I'm up against some lads here in my class who've different types of hotels and have been in the hospitality industry since they were bloody 9 or 10 years old, but I think I can get there. Do you know?" And the year I had in Luxembourg, I absolutely loved it. Loved every minute of it. Loved the work, loved the buzz, loved the hustle and bustle of the hotel, and I was good at it. I was good with people. I was good with managing, and it's good. I could see something coming, you know.
Hmm.
And I got it. Yeah, I got the buzz for it, and I got the hunger, I had the drive, and I had the passion for doing right things. And I came back and did 2 more years down in Shannon, and ended up working in a hotel in Adair there as well, and absolutely loved it. Really, really enjoyed it. And I graduated. When I graduated, I won an award most likely to succeed in the industry. So,
God, that is a hell of a
um,
turnaround.
oh Jesus, yeah, I don't know whether it was just the turnaround that they were all shocked to give it to me or what, but yeah, yeah, no, it was brilliant. So yeah, that kind of gave me the kickstart and gave me the learning. And to be fair, it's a fantastic college, absolutely fantastic college. For that, it takes people and shows them really what they need to do, and they've good ethos behind them in hospitality, and some of the best hoteliers in the world come from Shannon.
Yeah. Well, no question about that. Yeah. Okay. So, what happened after that? Where did you head with your
So
newfound excitement and knowledge?
yeah, something that's great about Shannon is that they kind of guarantee 100% job rate after you graduate. So when I was in my final year, hoteliers will come back and recruit for graduate programs, and there'll be somebody in every week giving a talk on what they want to do, or what they were looking for exactly. And then you could apply, and you can do an interview, and they'll pick the graduate that they want, I suppose. So my mindset was always to go to America. I wanted to go to New York. I actually had earmarked Marriott, and I'd earmarked Fitzpatrick's, an Irish brand over there that I wanted to work for. But they weren't coming to interview until the March time. This was probably October, and I literally sat in a lecture simply because I can't remember why I was even still in the college, but I wasn't planning on going to it. But I sat in on a talk from Vincent Madden from he was working with the Arora Hotel Group at the time, Sofitel in London, and he was the general manager of the Sofitel London Heathrow and Dublin lads. And he came back, and I was sitting in the very back of the lecture hall, and as soon as he started speaking, my ears just perked, and I sat through 40 minutes of him talking about the hotel and his career, and I just said, "Fuck, I need to work for this man." He's
Right.
that was yeah, it was just one of those drops in my head, and I was like, "That's where I need to go." So he was just flying over from London for the day. I tried to get an interview lined up, and they said they wouldn't. It was all full already because you're supposed to book yourself in a week or two beforehand, if that makes sense.
Mm.
So I said, "Feck." So I ran back to the college dorms or wherever, or the houses. Drove back, and I knew he was in interviews all day, and he had a flight to catch at 5 o'clock from Shannon. So I went back on true on a suit and a tie, and made myself look half
An iron
presentable.
shirt.
Yeah, ironed my shirt, ironed
Yeah.
everything was perfectly ironed, I tell you, Bill. And I waited outside till he finished his interviews, and just before he ran to get his plane, I stopped him. I said, "Listen, can I have 5 minutes of your time?" And he said, "Okay." And he was pushed for time, and I said, "Look, I missed the cut. I heard your thing, and I really want to work for you." And we had a quick interview for 5 minutes, and he said, "Look," halfway through, he goes, "Look, I really need to go." I said, "No problem. I'll walk you over to the airport." So I walked with him the whole way up to the gate and saw him on the plane. And
Did you give him a
just
hug?
before, yeah, just before he boarded went through the gate, he said, "Right, I'll see you in June in London." And that was that. Yeah. So
Right.
it was one of those things. I think he'd asked me why was I wearing a suit, because everybody else was wearing the college uniform, and that was a rule, you were supposed to. And I just told him blatantly I wanted to stand out and I wanted to get your attention. And he said, "Sure, you're not going to get in trouble for that." I said, "I don't give a shite. I just want to work for you." And I think he liked that, and he said, "Well, what would it take?" And I said, "I'll work for free. I don't give a shit." I said, "But look, if I do okay in a month or two, will you pay me?" So he kind of laughed at that, and said, "Okay, no problem." So yeah, that was that. So off to London I went in the June time, and started my journey with the Aurora Hotel Group, and started off as a trainee manager and training in meeting and events, and absolutely loved it. Worked my ass off. Would have done anything for him. There was him. There was a guy called Ryan Nichols. There was James Murphy, who I worked with, and they were all fantastic guys who were hungry and passionate about hospitality and business more so. And the hotel was run absolutely amazingly. Surinder Arora was the owner, and he was always in and out, and um, just loved it. Absolutely loved it.
Mm.
and worked my way up. I ended up spending 4 years there and finished off as food and beverage manager before I went and worked with Danny Pecorelli in exclusive hotels.
Goodness, I mean, you're just dropping some names now, aren't you? But I suppose if we'd backtrack a little bit as to how you've ended up on this journey, is that you were bold beyond words there in order to get some time with Vincent, and just doing that act alone, you would have stood out whether you were wearing a suit or not. To be honest, and this is something that I think that gets lost a lot of time. That if you really, really want something, then it is kind of that mentality of just go get it. Like, don't rest and let it come to you. You've got to have the courage of your convictions and go out and kind of chase it down yourself.
Yeah, 100%. There's another one coming up if we keep going. When I ended up
Good
working
stuff.
with James Horler, but it was only like, yeah, I suppose I learned early on that my 20s were for learning, and I wanted to work with the best people, and I needed to in especially in hospitality. If you start working with a bad group or a bad manager, it's toxic. You'll be out of hospitality very soon.
Hmm.
And as soon as I heard Vincent, there was something that I really admired about him, and I wanted to do what he was doing, and that was simple as I made my decision there in a split second.
Yeah, absolutely. So over to exclusive.
Yeah, so I'd worked my way up with Sofitel. I'd put in hard graft there, and an opportunity came up in the South Lodge Hotel as a restaurant manager at the Camellia restaurant there. What had attracted me there was Stephen Edwards was the head chef, and he'd just won MasterChef the Professionals. And I got a call from David Connell asking if I'd be interested in coming over, and I went down as a mystery guest and ate in the restaurant, and absolutely stunning. I don't know if you've been to the property, but it's just outside Horsham there, and it's just facing the South Downs. It's a lovely, lovely venue property, real foodie, real kind of old world hospitality, and just stunning. Everything stunning about it. So fell in love with the property as soon as I went there. And
I mean, David Connell's not exactly a slouch in the old hospitality realm either, is he?
no, well, again, it was. I wasn't sure if I was going to, because I spoke to Vincent, and he obviously told me not to go, and he wanted me to continue working with him, and that him and Surinder had earmarked me as a future GM of one of their properties. So it was a very tough decision to make. And when I met David Connell, that kind of secured that was the right thing to do for a couple of years. And the Sofitel in London Heathrow was very corporate. I learned a hell of a lot about business and managing P&Ls and managing wages, and watching costs. But at the same time, it was 5-star hotel, but it wasn't the height of luxury, if that makes sense. I think I needed something else that was more, your couples, your families, and your more fine dining, if that makes sense. Just to round off my experience, really. So took the job after meeting David, and yeah, again, another guy I wanted to learn from and I wanted to work with. He had great passion for the business and for the property, and when he talked about the goals that he wanted to achieve in South Lodge, it was fantastic, and I wanted to be a part of it. So yeah, Stephen Edwards was the head chef. He just won MasterChef, so the restaurant went from, I don't know, maybe 20, 30 covers a night to being sold out every single night of the week. You didn't have a downtime in it, and it was tough. There's no doubt about it. We were doing breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and we didn't exactly have a full team in place. We were trying to recruit people. It was hard to get people out in that area, especially good people. And anybody who was good would come. You'd just have them trained up, and then a year later they'd be sniped off to a fancy restaurant in London.
Right. Yeah.
Um, so yeah, that came with different challenges in terms of management, but I loved it. I learned a lot in terms of fine dining, in terms of wine, in terms of food. Matt Gillen was the head chef, the other head chef there in the past restaurants, so I did a good few shifts in with him as well, and it was absolutely amazing. The stuff that we were creating there, between the service, the food, the wine, was something completely different. There was interviews with BBC. Stephen Edwards had a camera in his face every fucking day of the week, and it was brilliant. It was cool to be part of, and it was good fun, and we worked our absolute asses off. But it was great, you know.
Yeah, the thing about working your ass off is that I think this is something that we talk a lot about now, right, in the industry, that people are out looking for work-life balance, etc., etc. And I totally get it. Like, you
Yeah,
have to have some kind of balance, but at the same time, if you're surrounded by people who care deeply about what they do and you all get on brilliantly together and you're all pushing and pulling in the same direction, then it's just a wonderful place to be, isn't it? Like, I mean, so
yeah.
in many ways, yes, of course, the hours will tell you it's work, but actually, what you're doing while you're there is not work, because you're just basically helping a group of mates achieve something really, really cool.
Yeah, well, look, it was a good time for me. Look, I wouldn't do it now.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. I've been through it. I was 24, 25 at the time. I didn't have any kids, and that was my life. You know, as sad as it was. But we had a good, like that. There was some great lads that we were working with, that we were all pulling together to achieve something, and there was that sense of camaraderie and that sense of team trying to get three rosettes and trying to get Michelin stars. And it was a fantastic hotel to work in. Danny was a great leader from the top as well. So there was always, again, I was learning, and every day, every month, I was getting better. I was getting better at managing people. I was upskilling as well. So I was on the right path.
Absolutely. So how did it progress from there?
So at that stage, my goal was always to become a general manager of a five-star hotel by the time I was 30, and I was on the right track for that. We were talking about me taking on the food and beverage side of things, and in with David, and I actually won. It was the Acorn Scholarship at the time, and yeah, it was that was another kind of change in path in my career. So that was basically, they do the Acorn, top 30 under 30 awards. This was something that was just underneath that. There was just one winner, and it was basically, again, a kind of like a most likely to succeed, to do something in the industry.
Yeah.
So I won that when I was with Exclusive Hotels, and one of the guys on the judging panel was a guy called James Horler. He owns Ego Restaurants and 360 Restaurants in London, and he started Latasca, and built that up from 2 restaurants to 66 or 65 restaurants before he sold it. He was involved in Frankie and Benny's, a guy that Patisserie Valley, he's everything, himself and Luke Johnson. And I ended up spending a bit of time trying to pick his brains afterwards. There was kind of like a dinner on it, and I ended up sitting beside him, and I was chatting away to him, and it was one of those moments, I need to work for this man.
Right.
So I hounded him. I got his number, and I kept fucking calling him, and I sent him so many emails. I said I sent him 6 or 7 emails. He never got back to me. I ended up, yeah, I
Going
ended
around
up
his
chasing him down.
house.
Yeah, I ended up chasing him down. He eventually agreed to meet me for breakfast in London, so I got the train in that day, and met him in a place in London. I was just asking for advice, and wanted to see what he had achieved, and love what he was doing, and his whole, I just, everything about him, he inspired me. So met him for breakfast, and I'd say I was like a giddy child at Christmas, asking him so many questions and everything else. And one thing he said to me, he questioned my goals. He said, because my aim was always to become a general manager of a five-star hotel before I was 30. And then I wanted to go on and open my own business, whether it was a hotel or restaurant, whatever else. And I felt I needed to get to the general manager position to have the complete experience to then go on and open my own place.
Mm.
So he questioned that straight away, and he said, well, why do you need to be a general manager in a five-star hotel to then go on and open your own business? He said, what you need to do is actually learn how to run a business now. I thought, geez, that's all right. So he said, look, there's loads of different things. You should go away and have a think about it. So I went away, and I emailed him that night and said, listen, I want to work for you. The next opportunity that comes up that you think is suitable, just put me anywhere. And he said, yeah, okay, no problem. And didn't think anything else of it. Went back to work, and 2 weeks later he called me and he said, listen, I've got a general manager's position in a place in his Ego restaurants in Kenilworth. And I just automatically said, yeah, absolutely, I'll be there, no problem. And he goes, do you know where it is? And I said, absolutely no idea. So it turns out it was just outside Birmingham, up in
Right.
Marshall.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
Yeah, so ended up leaving exclusive hotels and went to work with James. Geez, it was just a big eye opening. Gone from doing breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and all focus on service and attention to detail, to all of a sudden become general manager of a, it was probably a 90-seater restaurant, running a team of probably about 30 people, and having absolutely no support. James would check in maybe once every 2 months, 3 months. There was an area manager who would oversee all the restaurants. I think there were 7 or 8 at the time. So he was in and out, and he would have been on the phone if I needed anything. But I absolutely loved it. It was like I was given the keys to my own business.
Yeah. Sounds
Um,
like it.
it was fantastic. It really was. I had full control of P&L. I had full control of spending costs. I could do anything. And I grabbed it. I think the restaurant was turning maybe 17,000 a week at the time, and I got it up to fucking 30,000 fairly quickly. Just getting out and about in the community and trying new things and being on site, and yeah, I really relished it, and it was going really, really, really well.
That's that entrepreneurial spirit kicking in again, isn't it? That you're like, as you say, it felt like it's your own place. You've got the keys. You can do stuff, and if especially if somebody who's kind of, I suppose, I get once again seen something in you, because it's a very different environment to go from a place like South Lodge into a place like that, which is pumping and doing those kind of figures. And as you say, you don't have the luxury of a support network, that you're it. You've got to make this happen.
Yeah, no, it was brilliant, and you know what? I learned so much from doing that. If at the time I felt like I was going down in standards and I was going down in the career path, and there was a lot of people in hotels that were looking at me thinking I was absolutely gone fucking mad. But I loved it. I was able to bring a lot from the hotel side of stuff and from the fine dining side of stuff into that casual dining thing that just worked. It's a small attention to detail things that was always been missed in the casual dining restaurants. Just making sure the staff are a little bit better presented and taking care of, just making sure that instead of just dropping bottles of water at the table, they were served and they were poured, and small things, but there was
Yeah,
stuff that customers remembered and came back, and it was very easy to improve service, which ultimately improved the restaurant and everything else. So it was brilliant, and I was so very heavily involved in budgets and forecasting, and it just opened my eyes to the business world behind it, if that makes sense. And that's exactly
yeah,
what James wanted to get out of me. He said, like, you kind of got the service, now you need to figure out how to go and run a restaurant.
yeah. So let me ask you a deep question then on the back of that. That goal that you had around becoming a 5-star hotel GM by the time you're 30. Do you think that was your goal, or do you think that was a kind of an imprinted goal from the world that you just happened to find yourself in?
It was definitely the latter. Do you know what it really was? I think was I was trying to prove everybody in Shannon that I could get to the top, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah,
It was always drilled into you in Shannon College that we were the next general managers. And that was your Everest to get to. And
yeah.
I suppose that was what I wanted to. It was, yeah, that was drilled into me, and I was like, well, I can get to that. I'll work my ass off, and I'll prove to you I can get there.
Yeah. So it was more about that principle of somebody, especially in the early stages, doesn't believe you can do something. I'm gonna prove you wrong. I am gonna do
100%.
this.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah. No, I mean, we come across this a lot, right? Because I think a lot of times there's a saying, isn't there, around you are a product of the 5 people you spend the most time with, or something like that.
yeah, 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 yeah.
So if you're spending a lot of time with hotel people, then the fact of the matter is that that's probably going to imprint on you a little bit, and that this is what I want. But a lot of the time, and this is just generally, this is not a dig at hotels in any way, shape, or form, because people do find their own goals in that environment for sure. But I think what I really like about your story to this point is the fact that you've kind of gone where you've seen inspiration. So you've been inspired by certain people, Vincent to start with, then Danny and David. and now James, and and all of the while you're following the inspiration as opposed to following the grand goal, if you like, because maybe at this time as well you're still quite young, right? So
Yeah.
you're still trying to find your way, really, in terms of what is the thing that truly ignites you.
Yeah, no, 100%. Look, I think having my own place was always in the back of my mind, and that was always a goal that I was going to try and strive for. But I was clever enough that I needed to get the experience from the right people, and between Vincent, Danny, David, and James, Jesus, you couldn't get a better 4 or 5 people to
Yeah,
learn from in the
yeah,
industry, and that's given me the backing to go on and make RockSalt a success. But yeah, they gave me invaluable lessons and invaluable skills and nuggets along the way that I've never forgotten. And I've always, I suppose it's built my character in management and in leadership, and that's what I've always modeled it off. I've tried to take the best sides of their leadership style and make it into my own, if that makes sense.
5-star hospitality means having the right people in the right place at the right time, and that's exactly where RotaCloud can help. RotaCloud is the online platform that makes planning rotas, recording attendance, and managing annual leave easy. Its simple, drag-and-drop interface lets you create and share rotas with your team in minutes, while our built-in budgeting tools mean you'll know exactly how much you're spending on staffing before sending the rota out. RotaCloud also makes life easier for your staff, allowing them to check their rotas, request time off, and pick up extra shifts, all through the RotaCloud mobile app. Start your 30-day free trial today by visiting rotacloud.com/Phil and find out how much easier managing your team can be.
yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, no, it was a fantastic journey throughout the UK, and yeah, we ended up spending 9, 10 years, 10 years over there nearly.
Yeah, so you're in Warwickshire now. That's where we are in the story.
Yeah,
How long were you there, and what happened next?
I was there for 2 years, and at the time there was kind of an urge to go home and settle down and start a family. It was one of those things. I'd been offered another job within Ego to kind of oversee 2 or 3 sites, and I was if I'd taken it on, it was going to be another 2 or 3 years at least that I would have needed to put onto it. But I also got a call from a crowd back in Maynooth in Ireland who had a hotel, and they had an old nightclub beside it, and they basically wanted to put in a restaurant or a cafe or something in there. I didn't really know what he wanted to do. He was more of a builder, investor kind of thing, and they were looking for somebody to come in and figure it out. So I got that call, and something that I hadn't done in my career to date was a new opening. And I figured that was the last piece of the puzzle that I needed to do before I could go off and open my own place. And I talked to James a couple of times about bringing Ego over to Ireland, and if I could take that and bring it over and things like that. But never more than just a chat over a coffee sort of thing. So I ended up pulling out of Ego. Met James, came down to my house one day, and thought I was making a mistake and asked me to stay and stuff. But it was probably the right time, and I'd learned a hell of a lot from James and from Ego. And yeah, I was going in again like that, given the keys and given. I went into an old dingy nightclub in this place in Maynooth, with old sticky carpet and bars that don't think had
Lovely.
been open for 10 years nearly. Do you know, that kind of way?
Yeah, yeah.
And
Were you thinking, oh God, what have I done?
no, I was loving it. I was
Really? Right.
absolutely loving it. I was licking my lips. I couldn't wait to get in. It was fantastic. And your man said, "Look," he said, "there's a huge space here. We need to do something with it. Something to do with a restaurant or cafe or something." He goes, "I don't fucking know. Throw a few ideas at me and see what happens." So that was a place called Show the Market Cafe. We ended up, and I project managed it from construction to opening to being the general manager then. And I kind of modeled it off the Evoca style, where it was kind of a big eatery, but had a bit of retail space, had a little grab and go coffee area, and then had a full kind of food service menu from the kitchen as well. and geez, there must have been about 120, 130 seats in it, and we did a kind of rustic feel to it, and it was brilliant, you know, to be involved in every single like decision in terms of where we were putting the plug sockets, the lights, you know, the decor, the chairs, the signage, all of that kind of stuff was invaluable. So I kind of spent the first year. The first year was really, you know, kind of developing that and trying to figure out what we were going to do and hiring the team and getting the uniforms right and doing all that. And I loved it, absolutely loved it. It was something new. I hadn't done it before. I'd always been anywhere I'd been before. I was given the blueprint. I was like, this is how we operate, you know. Whereas now I was creating the blueprint. And yeah, we opened it up, and it was a great success. So I ended up spending a year and a half there, 2 years nearly, and I'd gone to them and said my whole aim was, I told them I wanted to kind of either buy into it if it was a second one and kind of roll it out, or I wanted to open my own place, you know. So I was 28 at the time, and I approached them and said, listen, there's some other sites coming up around Dublin and stuff. I think we should go again, and I'd love to invest in at this point, and you know, take part ownership of it. And they're kind of yeah maybe, yeah, I think you need another 6 months or so. So I said, okay, no problem. Put another 6 months into the place, brought it up again, and I said, right, here's 5 places now that I think will thrive. And they turned around basically and said, well, we're not going to put the investment into it, like, you know. So I said, fuck it anyway. Basically. And started looking for my own place. So I'm from a little village outside Dundalk called Blackrock. At the time, I'd bought a house up in Maynooth, which is probably about an hour and a half away. We had our first kid, Jack, and I was 29. So my goal was to have the place by the time I was 30. And so I started looking around. I met a guy called Connor Hughes down here who had a music shop in the village. I'd actually came back, and I met a guy called Paddy Sands one Christmas. I was back home, and he owns Illy Coffee in Ireland, and he's the main distributor for it, and it's a huge big business here based in Dundalk. And I just thrown around some ideas. I said, I'd love to open my own place and blah blah blah. And he said, geez, I think Connor down the road has gone for planning permission for something. So it was either Christmas Eve or it was the 26th, and I went and knocked on his door, and he didn't answer, and I knocked again, and eventually he answered, and I said, I heard you're putting something in. And he's like, yeah, no, I'm going for planning permission, but I keep getting rejected, blah blah blah. So I just said, well, look, I'm your man who's going to take it on. And he said, what? And I said, yeah, no, look, I'm running a place in Maynooth here at the moment. It's called Shoda. Come down, check it out. And it was literally probably a minute conversation. He didn't know who I was at the time. I didn't know him, and I just said, yeah, that's the location. That's where I need to be. It was lovely seafront in the village I grew up in, so I would have had the buy-in from everybody straight away, and it just seemed to make sense. And didn't think anything else of it. He was struggling to get planning permission. There was a lot of people objecting to it, and I was still working through my notice period in Shoda. I was still trying to figure out what I was going to do next. And probably a month later, I hadn't spoken to Connor since that day. I knocked on his door on Stephen's Day, and he just walked into the cafe all of a sudden and said, I'm here to check it out. We got planning permission through. And I said, all right. And he said, are you ready to go? And I said, yeah, let's do it. So yeah, that was the start of RockSalt, really. I took on the lease without signing anything, without doing anything, and I trusted him, and we went to work, and he was involved in a lot of the fit out at the start, and yeah, it was basically just get it up and running for August time. And we fitted out the kitchen, we did everything, nearly like, again, what I project managed in Shoda, but this is my own money now that I was putting into it. And yeah, I was scrimping and saving. I was checking every bloody envelope that came in. And yeah, we created RockSalt, we opened up in August, and I suppose the rest is history, with a queue out the door from 10 a.m. that morning.
Right. Yeah. Well, here we are again, another situation whereby you've just kind of, I suppose, been bold, thrown yourself at it, actually gone into another environment whereby you've taken maybe the lessons of previous, where you went into an environment where you didn't have a lot of support. So once again now, I mean, yes, of course, there's going to be support in bits and pieces, bits and pieces here and there. But in actual fact, you've absolutely put your money where your mouth is, and now the buck stops and starts with you, right? I suppose you're all in. You've got to make this work.
Yeah, 100%. Like, I'd taken everything I owned and put it into it. There was 40,000. We needed to fit it out. I actually called James Horler at one point, and I asked him for 30 grand, and I was going to give him 40% of the business. And we were going back and forth a little bit, and I was just waiting to get equity out of the house that I'd bought and things like that. So I wasn't sure if it was going to happen or not. And James was, I suppose, my kind of backup. And just the last minute, the money came through, and I didn't need to take anything off James. So yeah, I still own the business 100% myself, thankfully. And he still gives me a bit of advice here and there and stuff. But thankfully, I didn't have to take a penny off him. But no, it was one of those things. You threw everything at it. Look, I had a young kid at the time. Jack was only fucking 1, I think, and yeah, I went and threw everything I owned into RockSalt. I remember the first week we had a few issues, because obviously it was an old building, and there was always something, pipe bursting during the construction side of it, or something that needed to be done, and it was always being put back. So we had stuff ordered and came in, and stuff coming in too early before it was ready, and all that kind of stuff. So we actually had we were supposed to open 3 or 4 days prior to when we actually opened. So my head chef at the time was a guy, Connor Prendergast, who's still with me now, still our head chef in Blackrock, and a guy I used to play football with when I was a kid. And I actually just met him in the gym one day and asked him what he was doing, and he said he was a chef in a 3 Rosette restaurant. So I said, well, do you want to come and be a cafe chef? And he said, yeah, feck it, let's do it.
Wow.
Yeah. So we were able to create something absolutely completely different and unique. So we were planning on opening the week before we actually opened, and we couldn't get a water supply or something anyway, and it was pushed back. But we had our first delivery of all the food we needed from our suppliers had arrived in, and we had it all in. Connor, the landlord, had a small little house beside it, and we had it all shoved in his fridges and freezers and stuff. And we converted his living room into a little storeroom for ourselves. So we went away for the weekend, or he went away or something anyway, and we were supposed to open on the Friday. We came back on the Tuesday or Wednesday to get prepped up and get ready to go. The water was fixed and everything was on, and the feckin' Egypt, his electricity at the time in the house was just on a card meter, so it had to be topped up, and it cut off. So there was 2 days where all our whole opening stock, our whole inventory was in the fridges and freezers and stuff like that. And yeah, we came into an awful smell 2 days later, and everything was gone off. And we had to reorder everything again to come in the next day and try and prep it all up. But I had no money. I had no money to pay for it.
Right.
And I had to give the driver a check on the Friday, on the Thursday. We were opening on the Friday, and I said, please don't cash that till Monday. I said, there's nothing in it, So thankfully he left us have the order, and he gave us all our stuff. But that was the smallest margins of completely bust or not. We were nearly bust before we even opened. Wrote him a check. He cashed it on the Monday. We opened on the Friday. Didn't know how it was going to go, and we sold out of food at 12 o'clock on Friday. We had to close the kitchen for 2 hours and try prep up again and run to supermarkets, and it was a success from the first second we opened the door, Phil. It was just incredible.
Right. And why do you think that is? Why do you think there was such this outpouring of support? I suppose there's always that shiny new thing element, but then I suppose you've just got yourself a rosetted chef as well, which I suppose helps in terms of the quality of the food. But yeah, how does it all come together in the face of what feels like probably is a really high stress situation for you, if you're basically maneuvering around the fact that you don't really have any cash flow? So describe how how do you make something of a success when you're in the face of all that stress?
Something I was always quite good at, just putting your head down and just getting on with things, and you're distracted by 1,000 different things. So not having any money in the bank was the least of my distractions, if that makes sense.
Right.
Probably should have been my whole distraction and my whole thing, but I don't know. I kind of had to. I backed myself, and I backed Connor, and I knew what we were doing was going to be right, and I knew it was going to come good. We were doing something completely different. There was nothing like it. Certainly, where in Blackrock or Dundalk at the time, you couldn't get a bloody artisan coffee. You couldn't get a tulip or a floret in a coffee. Never mind a swan or something like that. People didn't know what it was back then.
Yeah.
Only 6 years ago. Like, you'd be lucky to get it in Dublin at the time. So I'd come back from London, and had worked in all these fantastic places, to come back, and people were used to fucking Nescafe, and that's the kind of coffee they were drinking,
Right.
and the food they were eating was just big farmers fries that tasted of nothing, if that makes sense. That was the cafes we were up against at the time. So when we came and we did fucking amazing coffee, we created our own blend. It was Brazil, Sumatran, and Kenyan coffee, and it was the attention was in the detail. We put a twist on everything. So the whole ethos in RockSalt was to create that 5-star experience in a far more casual environment. So it was taking what myself and Connor had learned from the hotel side of things and from the fine dining side of stuff, and keep all those touch points of service and those attention to details in the food and the coffee and the quality, but do it so much more relaxed. Instead of saying, "Oh, good morning, sir, madame, may I take your jacket?" It's, "Well, Phil, what's the crack? Are you having a cappuccino?"
Right. Yeah. I will, by the way. Yes.
Yeah. And that was the ethos from the start, and it just worked. And people coming in just thought we were just a normal cafe. We didn't shout about that quality at the start. So anybody came in, and we did everything with a twist. We'd Connell black pudding sandwiches that had poached eggs and burnt apple puree through it, and wilted spinach and crispy kale on it. And people didn't even know what the fuck crispy kale was. Do you know what I mean? But when they tried it, they were gobsmacked. They thought it was unreal.
Yeah.
And it was just word of mouth. We were doing something different. We were creating waves, and it was brilliant. It was really, really good. And people, every fecker that came in was asking for extra hot fucking coffee at the time, and we wouldn't do it, and we just kept the quality, kept the consistency, and people started to appreciate the quality and started to appreciate what we were trying to do. And like that, there was something missing. Blackrock was a well-to-do area as well, and it was right in the seaside, and there was plenty of people commuting up and down to Dublin, and they were craving something like that, and we got it at the right time, and yeah, we've been able to grow it ever since.
Yeah. So that was site one.
Yeah.
At what point did you start to think, okay, this is something we can replicate, or at least we have a blueprint, to a foundational blueprint, to then see what other things we can maybe try in other markets?
It was always in the back of my head that it was, I wasn't going to run I was never going to just run one cafe of one small cafe. At the time, it was tiny. Like, we only had 20 seats maybe. We had a big open kitchen. Everything we did was attention to detail in the decor. We converted an old kind of stable into our kitchen. That was the kitchen path, and we got these old prison doors from an Indian prison that we went down to the toilet, and like everything was just rustic and different. So anytime you sat down and you're looking around, there was something new and exciting. You're like, Jesus, where'd they get that, or how did they come up with this? So everything was, the thing was in the detail. But for me, it was always get it up and running, get it right, and expand and replicate it. It was, I'd run big restaurants. I'd run my own businesses nearly at that point, for other people, but I had full control of them, and I wasn't going back to run a 20-seater cafe, if that makes sense. But that was the stepping stone to fire on and become a big, create a bigger business. But I had to get it right, and I had to figure out what we needed to do, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And yeah, we lived and breathed it for probably a year a year into BlackRock, we expanded it. We expanded BlackRock, so we've doubled the size of it since then, and we bought into a place in Dundalk, which was a 90-seater restaurant, and we were flying at the time. We'd queues out the door every day of the week, and people just couldn't get into it. It was that popular. It was brilliant, absolutely amazing. And so a site came up in Dundalk probably a year and a half later, and again jumped into it 2 feet and just said, yeah, fuck it, let's give it a go. Got the money together the night before, did a deal, took it on the next day, and
Wow.
yeah, didn't look back. It was trading as an old restaurant. It was failing. It was a lovely building. It was the old Printworks in Dundalk, which used to run the newspapers. Yeah, the restaurant just hadn't never taken off. Everybody thought I was fucking mad doing it. My mum begged me not to do it as well, but it just thought it was going to work, and didn't actually tell anybody. I think I just jumped in and kind of said, "Oh, we own that now, by the way," sort of thing. And yeah, the whole idea was to slowly rebrand it, slowly get people in. So we operated for 4 months under, it used to be called a Riva restaurant at the time, and we slowly started introducing RockSalt's coffee and RockSalt's dishes into the menu. So we had a brand new team, and maybe 30 people or so that we had to train up, and we had to get the quality right and the consistency. So we did it under this other brand, which we didn't really care about. So I knew you couldn't just walk in and get it right from day one and train a whole new staff and everything else. So we just did it bit by bit and improved the quality, improved the consistency. And when I was ready, we changed the name over the door, and we put RockSalt on it, and we changed the menus, and we changed the decor slightly, and we opened for 4 days, and then we got shut down with COVID.
Oh God! I was wondering when this would come into the story. Yeah, it's part of everybody's story now, isn't it? Yeah. I mean, and of course, I have only the visual really of what happened here in the UK. But how was that period in Ireland?
Yeah, it was shite.
Yeah,
it was. But I thrived on it. It's strange. Yeah, COVID was the best thing that ever happened to us. In a weird way, gave us time to kind of reevaluate the business. It gave us time to relook at things. We'd put hatch windows into BlackRock at the very start, beside our coffee machine to do takeaway coffees on the beach and stuff like that. And I couldn't get anybody to fucking stand at the window. It's mad.
right.
Nobody would get a coffee back in 2018 when we first opened. They all wanted to come inside and all of that sort of stuff. So COVID came in. Obviously, we got shut down, and I remember coming home and thinking, "Geez, what am I going to do?" We'd just taken on Dundalk. We were stuck in a huge lease there. It was big payments to be made. We had a team of probably about 40 people at the time on the books, and everything that we'd made from BlackRock, I put in to buy Dundalk. So we were right down on the financial side of stuff. So to be fair, both my landlords were really supportive, and they stopped the rent straight away, and they were like, "Look, you'll get through it. Just keep your head down." Nobody knew what was going on at the time.
Yeah.
But went home the day we closed, and I said, "Fuck this! I'm not letting it beat me." And I said, "Right, let's get to work. Let's do something." And the next morning I went back. We opened up the hatch window. We started serving takeaway coffees. We started doing food takeaway, and we just completely transformed the model. And albeit we cut the staffing right down, and we were able to. We probably made more money during COVID than we did any other year, because everybody else was afraid of their shite and fucking closed. Do you know, that kind of way?
Yeah,
so we were the only ones open, and we ended up. There was nothing. You couldn't get anything at the time. Thinking back on it now, it's nuts how quick it was. Look, I was young and I was partly naive at the time as well, and still hungry and wanted. The business had to be a success. And I wasn't going to let this beat me. And it was an even playing field. The way I looked at it was everybody was shut down and everybody was in the same boat. So it wasn't just impacting on us,
Yeah, and how do you find your edge? The USP at that point, if everybody else is closed down, is that, well, we'll be open.
Yeah, well, that's it, and we converted our website straight away. The next morning, I got on to a fella in IT, and we put an online shop on our website straight away. We were selling our coffee. I was driving around the county, dropping coffee bags to people's doors, and yeah, we just did anything really. We put the hatch windows in both places, and we started serving takeaway coffees and sandwiches and things like that. All contactless, if that makes sense, and
Yeah.
straight out the window. Nobody was coming inside. You couldn't sit down, but it was all that. And then when all the takeaways closed, we decided to flip the restaurant into a takeaway model, and we started putting together every Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, like a kind of a take on a Chinese restaurant, but just better quality Chinese takeaway basically. And we did like your beef stroganoffs, we did your crispy chili chicken dishes, we did hot chicken and garlic, but with our own twist on it. And yeah, we at one point we just put it out on Instagram, and here's our menu for the week, guys, pre-order, and we'll drop it out into your houses, and we had time slots that people could, we just leave it at the door, and they'd pay over the phone. And geez, at one time we had 6 drivers on the road, going around
Wow.
delivering food out to people. It was incredible. So all those kind of things, we just kept at it and kept doing something new. We were doing pancake boxes, we were doing brunch boxes, we ended up doing bottled cocktails, and yeah, it was that entrepreneurial spirit, I suppose, just came out in droves then.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, we'll park that time because nobody likes to talk about it. But in actual fact, your story through that period sounds like a little bit of a success story, and also, like leads to, I guess, some kind of evolution that some of which you keep moving forwards, and some of it is just for that time. But so, what have you now built Rock Salt into? What do you currently have and where?
So we've got six sites as of this week. Actually, we opened another one actually just yesterday. That was number 6, and yeah, we've got four main cafes. We also created a little rock salt concept this summer. We were always baking our own goods and stuff like that, and we had a dark kitchen, and the premises came up in Blackrock, right next door to where our main rock salt is, and we took that on and we put a little kind of express takeaway model in there. So we have our bakery, we do fresh pastries, cinnamon swirls, all that kind of stuff, and we're doing a quick kind of grab and go sandwich and wrap offering, and our coffee. And so we have 2 of those now. We've another dock in a gym as well. That does your coffee and your treats and your energy balls and all that kind of stuff. And then we've got 3 full service cafes, which sit down. And yeah, we started off with a team of 5 people. I think there was a couple of part timers in and out as well. And geez, I'd say we're over 80 to 90 people now at the moment.
Right. And well, and what does the future hold? I assume I get the feeling that you're not a guy that likes to stand still. So
No.
I'm assuming you'll have more plans in the future. But I guess at the moment your focus has got to be to make sure that you get your most recent one up and running and firing.
Yeah, 100%. Look, my job role has changed so much over the last couple of years. It's been, I'm still trying to figure out where I should be doing and what I should be doing. Do you know, that kind of way? But we have an operations manager in now who runs the cafes for me. I've got a head of coffee who goes around all the sites and makes sure the coffee audit's done, and make sure the baristas are skilled and up to speed, and that the consistency is there. And I also have a trainer who focuses on the service side of stuff now, who was a general manager for us before, who now goes around the sites and makes sure that the training and that people are inducted properly and everybody's been looked after. And we've got an executive chef, we've got 2 other head chefs as well. We've got a really, really strong team around me, which is brilliant and allows us to drive on and keep pushing. We were looking at opening another site now, probably just before the end of this year, so that'll be number 7.
Wow.
And again, it's just about hiring the right people and putting them in the right areas. It's all about people and consistency, and people who want to come along with the journey. So where we'll take it, I don't know, but as long as I can keep the quality and the consistency in the product, I'll keep pushing and keep driving it on. I want to keep learning, I want to keep growing. There's part of me that would love to bring it back to the UK and bring it in there. But yeah, there's still quite a bit to do here first. But yeah, it's exciting times, and look, I really enjoy it, and I've got two boys now, 4 and 6, Jack and Louis, and they love being around it, and they're in and out of it, and you can see them, they're excited by it, and they love rock salt, and it's kind of proud, so I want to build up something for them as well, and that's kind of driving me on as well at the moment, at the same time.
Yeah. Well, you've not got a lot going on then, have you? It's just,
Yeah.
but busy is good. But what I really love about your journey all the way through, kind of comes back to that very first moment that you kind of got in Vincent's face.
Yeah.
There's this boldness to what you're doing, boldness kind of in everything that you're doing, but equally there's this thirst. There's an inquisitive nature to what you do, and a thirst for learning and all of that. So for me, from the outside looking in, it feels like you have the blueprint, if there is such a thing, for success. And I'm sure that there'll be ups and downs through that process, COVID being an initial down but turned into an up. But the fact of the matter is, if you're bold and inquisitive, I think you've got the basic skill set to thrive in pretty much most environments, I'd say.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's definitely been ups and downs. We had another site on. We took a place in Carlingford, which is a lovely place just on the loch, but it turned out it wasn't the right site for us. There was the first, I suppose, failure in the business, and again, I learned so much from that. We ran that for 2 years, and we just couldn't get the consistency. We just couldn't get the product right in it, and we just pulled out there last summer, or just at the end of this summer. And yeah, it cost us to get out, and it was a costly lesson, but I just didn't have the passion for it. The location wasn't right, the building wasn't right, and it was one of those things at the time, Phil, I used to just say yes to everything and bulled into everything. And in hindsight, looking back, it was definitely just naive of me, and it was never the right location for us. And hand on heart, I could say it probably wasn't going to work unless I was there 60-70 hours a week, which I couldn't do with all the rest of the business going on. So there was also that, I suppose. No, I've never been afraid to fail either, and it was kind of like, right, this isn't working, we need to get out of it, and we need to focus on other areas, and we can grow in different areas. And like now we're probably getting, every week there's probably another location, somebody asking us to go in, and somebody want to bring rock salt to somewhere. So I'm a lot more clued in terms of where we need to go and what we want to do and the right people to work with. And I suppose Carlingford was definitely a learning curve in that we learn from our mistakes and we move on. And we've turned down a couple of places on the back of that, because I've seen what happened in Carlingford and I wasn't fully committed. So unless I really have that passion and that drive and that, I suppose, that giddiness, when I see a place, we won't look at it, that kind of way.
Yeah. You've got to have the spark, right? There's got to be something that ignites within you as the leader of the business. But then, if you've got the ignition for something, then that's going to come across to the people you're talking to about it as well, right?
100%, yeah, absolutely. And look, it's in the end of the day, the buck stops with me, and I need to be on my game, and I need to be 100%, back what we're doing, and then, everybody else can challenge me, and that's the way I want it to be. Like, I lead by example. My management style was always muck in and get whatever job is done, but and I lead from the front. But we've created a fantastic culture within the team, whereas anybody can pull me like, Dan, you made the wrong call here, or why the fuck did you do that? And it's brilliant because we're all in it together, and there's nobody above anybody in the whole business,
Yeah, absolutely. I can't let you go without asking you about something that was on your your sheet, which got me really intrigued. It was about a wedding cake.
Oh.
Talk to me about the wedding cake.
Yeah, so this probably when I was still in college at the time. I was working in Adair in a hotel there. Yeah, I would have been the barman that would have come in at 2-3 o'clock, served the dinner, and then jumped on the bar for the night. And it was a real wedding focused place. And there was a wedding on the Friday night. I was working on the bar, and the the groom came up to me and said, "Oh, listen, my mom's going to bed. Would you cut a slice of the wedding cake for her, that she can bring up with her?" And I said, "Absolutely, no problem." Went into the cold room, into the kitchen, picked up the first fucking bit of cake that I saw, put a huge big fucking chunk into it, and gave her a huge big generous portion. Feck it was the groom's mother, And there you go, Mary, off to bed. Good night now, see ya. So didn't think anything else of it. The next morning, the general manager, the owner of the hotel, I woke up to fucking 9 o'clock in the morning, probably 5, 6, 7 missed calls from him. I was thinking, that's weird. I'm not supposed to be in till 12 o'clock. And eventually got him on the phone, and he says, "You little bollocks, what the fuck did you do last night? We're after putting up the cake and for today's wedding, and there's a big chunk cut out of it."
Oh God.
So it turns out I cut the wrong wedding cake.
Oh Jesus. Yeah.
Yeah, so we had to call a baker in, or a pastry chef or something, to come in. And when I got in at 12 o'clock, the cake was lovely displayed on the wall, but yeah, and had to be re-iced on the side, because it said "Congratulations, Brian and Mary," and I cut Mary out of it and given it to the other one. And yeah, so there was a big plant in the middle of the cake where I'd cut a big hole in it to try and hide it.
My life. Yeah.
Yeah,
God.
yeah. So
imagine if.
yeah, there's a few little funny moments on that, and yeah, there was always a few good ones going up. But that was one that's yeah, I still get slagged about now today.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, brings back your PTSD about wedding cakes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Good man. All right. Final question before I let you go. For anybody that's listening, what would be your 3 main reasons as to why somebody should come into hospitality? I mean, geez, your story is there's so many reasons just that I have in my head as to why somebody should come on the back of here, and what you've kind of done and been through. But from your own perspective, what would be the 3 main ones?
The main thing is every day is different. For me, what really attracted me to hospitality was the people, and there's kind of flexibility that you never know who's going to walk in the door, what story you're going to be talking about, or what's good things, bad things, what oven's going to go down, how you're going to react to that, if electricity goes, blah blah blah. There's 100 different ways that the day can change from one minute to the next. And you'd never get that if you're working in insurance or in an office job or in a doctor's surgery or anything like that. I just absolutely love that. I also think hospitality, even if, and I say this to any kind of colleges or any students I talk to, even if hospitality isn't where you want to go long term, I think it's a fantastic industry to start off, and you get it. You so many transferable skills within hospitality, especially in the likes of hotels, that you get experience from between HR, between the operations, between how to deal with people, how to deal with management, and you can take that into anything. You can take it into a HR management job. You can take it into an office job. You can take it onto a bloody building site. There's so many transferable skills. And yeah, then for me, just the passion for good food and good service and good coffee. And there's something unique within the hospitality industry that I always thought was really incredible. There's nearly like a family. If you've worked in hotels, or if you've been a chef, or you've been a general manager or a manager, there's nearly not their respect, but there's nearly like a family ethos of there's always somebody you can reach out to, like James, like Vincent, like Danny. I could pick up the phone to anybody and be like, Jesus, look, I don't even know you, but I'm going to ask your advice on something. And 99% of the time, they will give you honest advice about it. They're not trying to cut you down or anything like that. And I love that about it,
Yeah, absolutely. Look, what a story, man. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of lessons in there for people. I think the boldness of your story is amazing. I think you're also showcasing what it is to be an entrepreneur, because, as you say, it's not all just one plain sailing route up to the top. You've taken the lessons at each stage, and I wish you guys all the very best for the next phase. It sounds like you've built yourself a cracking little business there, that's only really, I suppose, getting started and finding its place.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, we're what 6 years into it now, but it feels like we're only a couple of months. You know, that kind of way. There's still a lot to do and still a lot to achieve, and yeah, there's still a lot of things that I want to do, creative wise and kind of business wise. So yeah, look, hopefully watch this space and let's see what happens.
Yeah, perfect. Dan, thank you so much for your time. It's been wonderful to share your story with the world, and yeah, I wish you all the best for the next chapter.
Thank you very much, Phil. It was a pleasure talking to you this morning.
Good man. Take care.
And there we have it. What a brilliant journey Daniel has had so far, and he's building himself a wonderful business through courage and evolution. We'll be back this coming Friday as I have a short, cheeky bonus for you which you won't want to miss. So until then, thanks for listening, and we'll see you on Friday.